In the alkaline corner, the size of a diamond looking like a brownie, Flourish Tabs. In the acidic corner, the size of a diamond looking like a Tums chewable, API root tabs. It's about to go down.
Well, not really. In fact, the only thing going down tonight are some root tabs into Substrate. But what are root tabs and why do you need them? Tonight, we're going to compare two popular, widely available brands, Seachem Flourish Tabs and API root tabs. Folks, two quick disclaimers. Number one, my ridiculous intro had nothing to do with whether these tabs are better for alkaline or acidic water. They work for both. And number two, there is another option using DIY root tabs. Just YouTube that. There's a lot of information out there about it. I'll get to it later, but just make sure you get the Osmocote Plus 9-month release. Now, before we talk about the tabs themselves, let's cover some P's and Q's about your aquarium plants. Your stem and root plants absorb 400 to 400 times more nutrients through their root systems than they do the water column. This means we need to feed these guys and we have to feed them through the roots. So what options do we have in our tanks? Well, we've got plain old gravel, pool filter sand or black diamond blasting sand, substrate, and good old dirt. Now, while plain old gravel looks great, as well as pool filter sand or black diamond blasting sand, there is no nutritional value there. There's nothing for the plants to feed off of. Now, most aquarium substrates, here's my Rio Oscuro F I'll be using to redo another tank. They do have plenty of nutritional value as well as good old dirt. But in a case where we're using just plain gravel or pool filter sand, we're going to need to supplement to provide the nutritional value for our plants. Even with aquarium substrates and good old dirt, after a number of years, as their nutritional value depletes, we're going to have to supplement. We're going to have to put something in that substrate or dirt to feed our plants. Now let's look at our root tabs. Let's turn these guys over and look at our nutritional content. On the left, Seachem Flourish tabs, and on the right, API root tabs. You'll notice they are chock full of great stuff for your plants, but pay attention to the percentage of the nutrients. So in API root tabs, the nitrogen's at 3% while it's at 0.28 in the Flourish tabs on the left-hand side. The iron content in Flourish tabs at 2.2% where it's at 5% in our API root tabs. Now, the Flourish tabs by Seachem also have a lot of micronutrients in them, so it represents a much more comprehensive blend, while the API root tabs provide you plenty of macronutritional value. Now, my 2.6 gallon Fluval Spec was built primarily with API root tabs in pool filter sand. There's a reason for that, and I'll touch on that in a second, but I got great plant growth out of it, and I got great root systems. In my 10-gallon tank, I used a combination of Flourish tabs and API root tabs, but here's why I like the API tabs for small tanks, 2 gallons, 5 gallons. On the left-hand side, you can see how easily you can break them apart as opposed to the Flourish tab on the right. Now, the API root tabs have a consistency of like a Tums. I hope none of you are getting any stomach aches anytime soon, but if you've broken apart a Tums, that's about what the consistency is like. Now, the advantage of breaking these apart is you can place them strategically in your tank in smaller pieces. You don't want to overdose with your root tabs. In this particular case on the right-hand side, I wanted to put a half a tab right by my Crypta undulata. I just don't have a lot of plants there and I didn't want to overdose. The disadvantage is the API tabs do dissolve fairly quickly in the water, so they can get into your water column. Now, here's a Flourish tab going into the tank. These do not dissolve as fast, and as I press this down into the substrate and release, you'll see that the tab doesn't dissolve as easily into the water column. So with the API root tabs, you really have to make sure you're pressing those down into the substrate. Now again, on the left-hand side here, I broke off another API root tab, but I used a half a tab in an area on the left where I had replanted some Crypta lutea from my 2.6 gallon spec tank. Now remember, the nutritional content in these tabs are different. So in this replanting, I wanted this lutea to get a little bit of a boost with macronutrients, with nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus, and that's why I chose to use an API root tab here to give it a little bit of a jump start. This one I did get down into the substrate enough and didn't have any of that root tab dissolve into my water column. Now here on the left-hand side of the tank, I used a Flourish tab, and the reason being is the Crypta spiralis and the Crypta lutea here have been planted for a little while. I wanted to give them a little bit of food, but I didn't want a big dose of macronutrients. The Flourish Tabs have a nice comprehensive blend of macro and micronutrients, and that's why I wanted to go with a Flourish Tab on that side of the tank. I replace my root tabs every 6 to 9 months depending on the plant need, and of course the plant load in a particular area. The more plants I have in one area, the more they're going to feed and the more I have to replace the root tabs, but in general every 6 to 9 months. So in my experience, let me tell you my pros and cons of these two popular and widely available types of root tabs. API root tabs are full of great plant macronutrients. They're very easy to break up and you can place them strategically in your tank. These are especially good for 2.6 to 5 gallon tanks. They provide a great shot of iron, nitrogen to your plants as well as phosphorus and potassium. They do dissolve a little quickly in the water, so they can get into your water column if you don't use your fingers and press them well into the substrate. But overall, I got great growth using API root tabs in pool filter sand. Now the Flourish Tabs, they provide a nice blend of macro and micronutrients. I've had a lot of success with these as well in my 10-gallon tank. They're a little harder to break up, so they're a little harder to place strategically, so you want to place these where you do need a full-size tab in an area of your tank. Again, more comprehensive with your blend of nutrients, micro and macronutrients. They don't dissolve as quickly and they don't get up into your water column as easily as the API root tabs. So what's the final verdict on this, folks? Well, this may or may not be fair, but the answer is use both. In this throwdown, the winner are both the Flourish Tabs and the API root tabs. The trick with these tabs is to try to use them together to complement their different nutrient contents. The root tabs provide a great source of macronutrients and can be strategically placed, while the Flourish Tabs provide a great source of macro and micronutrients, a nice comprehensive blend. Hope that's helpful, folks. As always, much appreciate your support. Please like, comment, and subscribe for future content, and thanks for watching.